What's my work about? It's about opening to the mystery, about releasing everything we think we know, and about an exploration of these two qualities through the physical, through the interior, through the mind, and really through reality as a whole. My name's Craig Mallett, and welcome to the Aware, Relaxed, Connected podcast. Right, back into podcasting as usual. It's been a little while. Sorry for that. Life is doing its thing, and I'm not getting to the podcasting as often as I would like. As I record this, I'm in the middle of editing a really deep program on the Dantian development, or Dantian Gong. It's really preparation for the Dantian more than work on the Dantian itself, but it's a super, super solid course. And I'm very happy with how it's turning out, and that should be available pretty soon after this podcast goes live. So hope you all enjoy that. And if you're keen on that, just shoot me a message and I'll give you some more details about it. On to the topic of the podcast. I had a fair few people write to me and say they wanted to see the episodes on the other elements. So I did an episode a little while ago on dreams and the wood element. And prior to that, there was an episode on condensation and the metal element. So I figured I'd round out the episodes and do the rest of the elements. We've got water, fire, and earth to go. I think I'll do it in that order, leave the earth until last, and really focus on the water and the fire dynamic at the moment. So we'll start with water, because this is also one of the more elusive elements, particularly in today's world. And water has a few associations. It's associated with wisdom. It's associated with action and willpower in the Wu Xing, in the five spirits. It's the willpower. It's associated with the kidneys and the lower back and the Jing, and it's associated also with fear and anxiety. So let's kind of look at how that all works. First of all, with all these elemental things, the main thing to understand is that the element idea, water, is there to point to an energetic dynamic rather than to be a direct representation. So just like the wood element isn't literally about wood, the substance, nor is the water element literally about water, the substance, but it's pointing to an energetic action, an energetic phase that is exemplified by water. So you can just keep this in your mind. You don't want to get too literal with the Wu Xing stuff with the 5 phases. In general, we have to kind of tie a couple of things together. That water tends to get associated with midnight, with the middle of winter as well. And so it has all these like end of cycle storage, hibernation type qualities to it that you would typically associate with midnight and the end of the year and things like this. At the same time, it has this movement associated with it. So let's try and dig into how that works. Let's talk wisdom first, because water is a movement taken, but it's a specific kind of movement that's opposite to fire. It's opposite to the quick, snappy, sudden enlightenment that is fire. So let's talk a simple fire example. If I wanted to learn something these days, I could jump on like any number of AI platforms on the internet somewhere and just look it up, and there'd be a video there telling me how it's done. It's like, great, I know that. That would be an example of fire type understanding, that it's been revealed suddenly. It's very quick. It's like, yep, there it is. And in that newness, it's also rather immature. Water, on the other hand, talks to the wisdom of time and experience. So, water representing the end of the cycle, the wisdom associated with it is wisdom of having been there, having done it, having gone through the process already. So let's say you're a carpenter or a woodworker, and when you go onto YouTube and go, "How do I work wood?" It says these are the rules. You've got to do this. You can't do that, and so on and so forth. And you stick to those rules. The super super experienced person who's been through it, when they're working the wood, don't necessarily follow those rules. They maybe stick loosely in them, but they have their own ways of doing things, and those that understanding is born of experience. It's born of actually having worked the wood for years and years and years and maybe decades, to know by a kind of felt sense that it has to be like that, and that knowledge that it has to go a particular way or it should go a particular way isn't based on any kind of like rational cognitive thought. It's based on like a visceral understanding of it. Just has to be like that because that's what this bit of wood wants at this point in time. So the essence of the wisdom that's associated with water is really understanding that comes from having already gone through a process. It's like the understanding that you can't teach overnight. There's just no way to replicate this. There's no way to have a sudden insight that replicates the water type energy of wisdom. Um, it's the kind of thing that allows you to adapt to the situation and shift things and work outside the box, that when your skills are deeply embodied, have gone deep into the system, and again, you have these words that are associated with water as well, like depth, that those skills find a way to express that really can't be replicated by any kind of overnight secret hack or anything like this. And if they could be replicated, then it wouldn't really belong to the water set of this kind of knowledge that we call wisdom, that we call yeah. Yeah, I'd say fire is more like knowledge and water is more like wisdom. But what is wisdom? Wisdom is a kind of knowledge that comes off the back of having done something for many, many, many years, and made the mistakes and had the falls, and gone through the rigmarole, the ups and downs and all the rest. What water also gets associated with is a kind of slowness. It's a very yin type dynamic, so it's got slowness associated with it. There's no way to get wisdom quick. There's just no way. There's no way that it's going to be like, I'm going to do a year of training and get to where someone who's been training for 40 years is. It just doesn't work like that. There's no shortcuts there. You just have to wait and accumulate. So again, this waiting, this accumulation of slow understanding, and the action based off that, like I'm going to wait, I'm going to accumulate experience, and I'm only going to act based on my accumulated experience. This is the energy of water, this action that has both accumulation and storage associated with it. We're storing these experiences, and an action based off that experience associated with it as well. Again, here, the water is a really, really nice way of referring to this dynamic, because if you look at how like a little spring works, if you've ever been to a spring of a major river, like that's at the river mouth, it's a huge, huge river. The spring is only ever this tiny little thing. It's just this like little bubbling up thing that's not so grand. But if you follow the spring, it bubbles up and the water trickles down somewhere. And at some point it falls into a pool. And what it'll do is it'll just accumulate in that little pooled area, and accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And at some point it spills out of that and then continues traveling. Water has this want to find the lowest place, but in finding the lowest place, it'll go there and it'll accumulate until it fills up, and then it spills over the edge and then continues traveling down. And so this process repeats, and slowly the little trickle becomes a creek, and slowly the creek, it meets these pooled areas, and it accumulates and it accumulates and it accumulates, and then it overspills and becomes a river, and on it goes until it meets the ocean. And in the ocean, the water just kind of goes down to the depths. Um, and, the deepest parts of the ocean are like this accumulation of these tiny little bubbles of spring water around the world that are just leaking out of these tiny little hot spots and just have been doing that for millions of years until you know, presumably the ocean's filled up. Um, so you've got this sense that water, the element of water or the phase of water is really associated with waiting for something to accumulate before moving, um, letting the wisdom build before you act, and any action that's based on that accumulated wisdom would be kind of water type movement as well. You also have this sense of adaptability. So again, if the water's kind of traveling downstream and there's something in the way, it won't try and like bash down the door or find a secret entrance or whatever. It'll just stop there and start accumulating there, and it'll build up at this blockage until some point it flows around it and finds another way. So the wisdom that comes with water is this sense of like knowing when to wait, knowing when to change course, and like letting the situation dictate that rather than your wants and needs. So, if you have an idea of it should go like this, it should go like that, it should go like this, and then it doesn't go like that, well, if all you have are tools that say it should go like that, you're in trouble. Whereas water's very, very happy to like shift and go, well, it's not going like that, so I need to go like this. And to allow that adaptation to happen, I can draw on all my accumulated wisdom and experience. The other thing that water gets associated with is the Jing. And the Jing in Chinese medicine has this kind of peculiar idea. It's like stored potential. If you think of an acorn turning into an oak tree, inside that acorn is everything the oak tree can become already there. It hasn't been realized, but it's already there. So this potential is kind of stored. It still needs to go through the process of growing and being nurtured, but all the information is already there too. So our Jing is the same. Our Jing has the stored potential of our life arc within it. It may not be realized. This idea of the potential being stored also means that, if I take every single acorn, not every acorn is going to turn into the same huge oak tree. Some of them are going to be sick and weak and not realize the fullness of an oak tree. Others are going to be super healthy based on the context of, the environment that they're raised in. But nevertheless, each of us have this kind of potential of what can be realized with this life. It's both a limit that we can only achieve certain things with our life. We can't just do everything. And it's also a kind of countdown timer that our mortality means that we've only got so much time to do this in. So again, the water has this association with the end of life, right? With the end of the cycle. So within the Jing is already the idea that we're going to die and we only have so much time to accomplish this, realization of the potential of the Jing. And our little death counter is, ticking down every day. Every day we live, we get closer to that moment of death. It's coming for us whether we like it or not, and whether we talk about it or not. Our culture is not so good at talking about it, but in many cultures it's considered normal. And so within the Jing, within the water element, is this idea of stored potential that wants to be realized. And it wants to be realized over this like long-term arc of our life, just like the little stream needs to go from the stream to the pooling, to the creek, to the river, to the ocean. So does our life kind of want to unfold in this way. And the fear element here is really interesting. You could think of the fear associated with the kidneys as the deep ingrained knowledge that time will run out at some point. That, I can't just dilly-dally and spend the rest of my life kind of in a job I hate, coming home to watch TV shows I don't particularly like just on loop over and over again. That's the wasting of the Jing. It's this little countdown time is only getting smaller, and we only have so much time to realize our potential. And we can't realize our potential, in all these things we dislike. So the more we get into those patterns of wasting potential, the more our anxiety is going to amplify. And it's going to amplify and amplify. And while we're not taking steps towards realizing our potential, there's going to be this like amplification of anxiety. And you're seeing this across the world these days. That everyone wants the quick fix. No one wants to take the kind of slow route to realizing their potential. Everyone wants a 6-minute abs. No one wants to hear that Craig just released a 10-year long course. Things like this is just like apparently obvious in the modern world. And as a result, more and more and more and more people are getting anxious. More and more people have this like built up anxiety of, oh God, whoa, how do I even work? I don't know what I'm meant to do. Oh God. And so this is the negative aspect of the fear. Now, the movement of water also has this association with hidden things, with concealed things. So there's another element to fear, which is kind of like more of a positive element, that this potential that we all have is hidden beneath the surface of the flow of our life. And just like if you've ever been out in the middle of the ocean and you're, swimming in the deep, 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 deep ocean, and above the surface you're all fine, and you just put your head just past the reflective surface of the water and look down, and maybe if below you is several kilometers, you won't be able to see the bottom. All you can see is this like darkness, and it's like, I don't know what's down there. And there's this like, ugh. Um, this kind of like fear of the unknown, fear of the dark, fear of the deep. That's kind of in us all in a way. Part of our survival mechanism is to try and keep us safe, and unknown is definitely not safe. However, unknown is where the Jing is. Unknown is where the potential is. So we need to practice going towards this fear and away from the stupid, like, I'm wasting my life anxiety type of fear, towards this like fear of like taking a step into the unknown, just like going, I'm going to choose to take a step. At the same time, water has this like slowness about it. So it's like, I can't just get off the couch and today be realized, like comfortable in my Jing and having realized that that path is like this slow building up of, okay, I'm going to confront these depths again, and I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again. So it's like building up uh, this capacity to go towards these scary things, like one drop at a time. To give you a good example of this approach, if you're afraid of heights, you really don't want to be dragged to the top of a very tall building and held over the edge and be told to get over your fear. It's not going to work. It's going to like traumatize you even further. On the other hand, if you choose to go towards it, I'm going to confront my fear of heights and I'm going to get over it. You can start small, right? You can start with one step. You don't even have to resolve it this year. But if you start going towards, okay, I'll go towards something moderately high, that's still kind of safe, but high, like 2 meters, and I'll stand near the edge and I'll feel all the feelings that come up when all the imagining of falling off and all the rest of the fears that come up with that. And then I'll just stay there until I get used to it. And then I'll choose again to go a little higher and a little closer to the edge, and step by step and bit by bit, you can overcome it. So this is where the willpower action of the Zhe gets associated with water, that to realize our Jing and to take these steps towards the fear of depth of ourselves, that we've got to choose over and over again to go towards this kind of scary thing, to go towards these scary depths, to go towards release of letting go into it, to let it realize. And that willpower comes from, again, an accumulation of little choices like that. It's the eyedropper being used to fill up a bathtub. Then you can only put a little bit in. each day, and it's going to take a long time to fill that up. But if you keep putting something in, if you stick with it again and again and again, what you do is, first of all, you overcome your fear, and second of all, you realize your potential. Having done that, you build this incredible capacity and willpower to go towards what you need to go towards the things that are really important for your life, to actually realize the Jing. And so you start to see that the water has this sense of both movement and this, like, I will wait and accumulate and store experiences bit by bit by bit until that stored experience allows me to act on the next part that needs to be acted on. So yeah, this it has these kind of associations with both going down to the bottom and waiting and storing, um, going down to the depths and confronting the hidden, the fearful, the journey into the underworld, these kind of ideas. In the recent podcast with Gabriella, we talked about like going down into the cave to incubate. This is, a perfect water type dynamic here of like letting yourself move into depth, um, and not rushing that movement, not like going to the cave, going down there, lying for 20 minutes and go, hey, it didn't work. What the hell? It's like, no, it takes time. It needs to accumulate. You need to wait and let it slowly accumulate. And only with time and only with this like slow accumulation, only with this like eyedropper bit by bit by bit, will you possibly build up enough willpower for the realization of the depths and the confrontation of the deeper fears. Um, so hopefully, as I talk through this, you're starting to get a taste of this water element, like this wisdom that comes with this slow approach, this kind of the wisdom to wait for things to build up with time, the wisdom to accumulate bit by bit over a long period of time before moving, before acting. Um, so that the water has both a sense of willpower to act, to actually do the little accumulation, and also the willpower to wait and let it build up until the time is right for the adaptation, the flow of the energy to move around the obstacle or move over it or whatever. Or, in this old kind of image of water just dripping away on concrete until it just wears away a path and then it can move through. Um, all of these images that I'm using are like invoking this sense of like slow, slow, slow energy that builds and accumulates and stores um, over time. And so yin is really our time bound, water is really our time bound part of the phase. Um, While I'm talking here, I'm just going to bring up one of my notes because I wanted to read out to you some of the translations here of some of the water phases of the Bazi. So the Bazi, for those who don't know, is the called the 8 pillars of destiny. It's the Chinese astrology system, or one of them anyway, and it uses the 5 elements as a basis for its whole system. And the elements are broken up into yin and yang aspects, respectively, and then again broken up into heavenly and earthly expressions of those aspects. So you've got the two heavenly expressions of water, which are called Ren and Guai. Ren is the yang expression of water, and Guai is the yin expression of water. And the translations for these words, I mean, at one point they just mean ninth and 10th, meaning the ninth part of the cycle and the 10th part of the cycle, which is the end of that cycle. The end of the heavenly cycle is 10 periods long, yin and yang of each of the 5 elements. And the Ren is the second last, and the Guai is the last. And so Ren also means holding weight internally, and Guai means return or completion. And so they have this like stage of the cycle, Ren being associated with like a tsunami or a giant wave, and you can feel that sense of like a wave storing like a lot of water and moving forward, and maybe the water hasn't even broken yet, like the wave is still pregnant with all of that potential and momentum that's been built up over a long period of time. And so it's got this sense of flow, but flow that's full, right? It's not empty flow. It's very, very full flow. It's been accumulated over time. The action of Ren is this like distribution, propulsion, or circulation of resources. But again, it's got this implication from being in the second last position, in the yang water position, that it's a propulsion of gathered resources, right? It's a propulsion of something that's been gathered over a long period of time. And you'll get all these anxieties and things show up in recoil against this, that when you haven't actually gathered the resources, when you haven't taken the time, it's like, I know it's not going to work. Some part of me can feel that I'm not full enough. I haven't gathered enough and I'm trying this anyway, and it's a bad idea, and all the fear comes up, and then the willpower conks out and you bail, which is associated with this kind of willpower idea, and fear idea also associated with water. Now, Guai has an image of mist, this sense of like soaking water that soaks into you without you even realizing it's soaked into you. Its cycle stage is to do with condensation, storage, and completion, and its actions about sealing and deep nourishment and restoration. So again, you have this sense of like having finally gathered all of this resource, you can just kind of like rest and let the resource that you've gathered soak into you, and you don't really have this. No longer is there a sense of like frantic action needed once you've gone through all these cycles of gathering. There's just like this, like, I can just rest and let my gathered resource nourish me now. I've done the work. It's time for the nourishment. It's time for what I get from the work, you know. And again, you see how they're like these dynamics of water, and at different stages, there's like the willpower needed to accumulate experience over a long period of time. There is the wisdom that comes from, like, first of all, knowing that you need to take time to accumulate experience, or second of all, when you have accumulated experience, like acting based on that experience, not based on whatever flashy thing you saw 5 minutes ago. And so the action and the willpower is associated with both this sense of gathering over a long period of time, of storing experience over a long period of time, and then like only letting that go into motion when it's appropriate, when it's ready, when it's been when you've been nourished enough. In the earthly branches of these cycles, you've got Z, which is associated with the rat, but the rat only got associated with the Z element because rats are kind of active at midnight, and Z is associated with the midnight hour. But it's a conception pillar. It's about potential that is hidden and stored. And again, this sense of like pregnant potential hidden and stored, like the Jing idea I talked about, that there's this like something accumulated or something stored, but I don't know that it's there. The water idea of like looking below the surface and seeing that there's this like hidden world down there that's stored down there is all being shown up by this idea. The literal meaning of Z, if you take the Chinese character, is like the seed or the child. So you see again this idea of the Jing, that the potential being stored in the deep, in the depths, in the hidden depths of the water. The other element in the life cycle stage is high, which gets associated with the pig. I actually don't know where the pig idea came from. At any rate, high, the character means closed or sealed. And the life cycle stage, it's a return to storage when the cycle resets, again associated with like the end of the day, 9 to 11 p.m., you know, coming up towards midnight. This like time of where we literally go in and sleep. In winter, it would be this kind of like packing down and, you know, packing down for the winter to finish up the cycle of the year, the return of everything to storage, where the cycle gets a moment to rest before it starts again. So again, you see it's like associated with storage, with the receptivity of what has been built up over a period of time. But there are also these kind of actions associated with it, these movements associated with it, this wisdom associated with it. But it's a particular kind of movement. I'll go more into the fire movement, but the fire element in contrast is like fast, quick. I'm going to act now. I'm going to use just whatever is the latest information to act and not worry about building up experience. And as always, there's no right or wrong part of these phases, right? The whole Daoist idea is that all of these phases work in balance with each other. They are really, yeah, they're different sides of the seesaw, and sometimes you need one and sometimes you need the other, and it's not saying one's better or worse, but if you have an understanding of all of the cycles, the 5 elements actual diagram that shows the production cycles and the control cycles show you how all these cycles relate to each other. And so water has got 2 main roles. It's the control of fire. So fire is just rampant at the moment. Everyone's on this, like, I'm going to learn something in 2 seconds bender. I've got access to the whole information on the internet that's ever existed in humankind in 5 seconds. And I'm going to assume that I'm an expert because I read something 5 seconds ago without having accumulated anything. Well, how do we temper that? We temper that with water. We temper that with wisdom, with waiting, with accumulating slowly, with this sense of like taking time to rest and let things sink in. Again, you hear these words that are kind of like to let something sink in. It's got this water soaking, going deep kind of tone to it. And it requires us to really stop doing stuff so we can let something sink in before we carry on. So again, you can like go to this image of like the water accumulating in a pool before it finally fills up enough to continue down towards the depths. In general, water seeks out the depths. So in the Tao Te Ching, you have this paragraph that's about how water seeks the depths, and the Taoists follow the example of water. It's a good idea to build up your wisdom, to take the time to confront the depths, to accept that things take time to build up, that you can't rush it, you can't turbocharge it. And even if you could turbocharge it, that is not a good idea. You know, it's not a good idea to turbocharge these things. It's a better idea to wait and let things take their time and let things build up, and let things be unknown for a little while. You know, this sense of the hidden depths. I don't know the fullness of my potential. I don't know how my life is actually going to unfold. I need to wait and let this unknown reveal itself bit by bit by bit by bit. And there's a wisdom in that. So this is the water cycle, or the water phase in the 5 element cycle. The other thing that it gets associated with is earth. So earth controls water, and we'll get into earth in another podcast, but it's basically this sense of like analysis and planning and intellect and digestion and thinking things through and all of this kind of thing. And you can see how that need to like think and analyze and understand before you act really directly speaks to the water. That's how the water is regulated, to stop the water just going like a tsunami or like a flood in every direction that it shouldn't be going. The earth is essentially like the banks that shape the river that allow it to take a particular path. So when that anxiety really makes you want to go in every direction and you don't know which direction to go in, that it's like, oh wait, I can just think and analyze and plan a little bit, and that can allow that water to be directed to something more useful. That action that comes off accumulated experience to go in a good direction. So you see the water controls the earth controls the water from this sense. But yeah, really, I want you to understand that um, these phases are really, we use water to emphasize the phase and how the phase works, not the other way around. The phase isn't saying it's literally water. Just the examples I give will hopefully start to clue you into an essence of how water works and what you want to look for in your life to address water imbalances. Can you find moments in your life where you're maybe avoiding confronting your fears? So start taking little steps where you've rushed too much and haven't let yourself accumulate enough wisdom before acting. Um, or on the flip side, you can start to identify the parts of your life that are working well in this and maybe emphasize them more if you need. There's like, oh, I've actually like got a lot of experience in whatever topic I've spent my life studying or topics, and I can act off that experience, and there's depth there, and that's pretty cool. Um, Again, if I want to balance that, maybe I need some fire. Maybe I've only been doing that like one thing, getting wisdom in that, and I need to balance that with doing something new, doing something I haven't done before, doing something that I'm at the start of again. There's definitely wisdom in that too, in balancing all of these things, not just going deep on one thing. I'd leave it there for this week. It's a bit of a shorter episode, but I think I got the point across that this water has its main associations with action, willpower, fear, wisdom of waiting for things to accumulate and store and nourish before letting them move into action. That has associations with confronting our deeper fears, anxieties from our Jing running out and not being realized, and all of this stuff. So, yeah, if you have any questions about this, write to me at some point. You can find my email and my contact stuff on my website at craigmallet.com/contact. I am in the midst of building a course after the Dantian Gong course is finished on the 5 elements. So there'll be a course that's more like theory, which I'll probably throw these podcasts in as well, just in case people doing the course haven't listened to them. And then there'll be 5 separate courses that are like Qigong and Neigong stuff you can do to balance each of those elements out. So you'll have one for wood, one for fire, one for earth, one for metal, and one for water. And each of them will be like looking at these ideas in a fundamental way. So I want to get away from 5 elements course that's really like, this is the 5 element movement for water, and it's the only one you can do for water, and that doesn't help you actually understand what the essence of water is. So the idea here is, if you get down to understanding the essence, you can identify that essence or the phase of that movement in anything. When you go and look at something new, what do you need to look for? You need to look for the movement or the time taken to build something up, that kind of end of life storage idea, the hidden potential that can take time to realize. And then you're like, oh, that's the water part of this. Um, Adaptation could be another quality that you're looking for, this ability to wait and adapt and move around and not just get stuck, but also not try and force your way through, to have this like easy adaptation that comes from the effortless searching for the lower ground. So we'll leave it there. I hope you guys all enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next podcast.